in most problems, you're going to have to use the sum, the difference, and the power rule all together. So let's break down how everything comes together in these kinds of problems. So there's a few things we want to pay attention to. Okay, so first we look at combining into a single log. Right, so when combining into a single log, make sure all of the bases are the same. Right, so here we see that the base is not written, so that means this is the common log, which is base 10. Right, so here we have a common log, and here again is the common log. So when we combine it, we have to combine it to the same log, right? So the common log. Okay, so the bases are all the same. And then you pay attention to the operations, right? So here we have subtraction, and here we have addition, right? So things that are subtracted, which is this thing, go into the denominator, and terms that are added go on top. Right, so this x has to go on top because the term is positive. This 2x cubed goes on the bottom because that term is subtracted. And the y, that term is positive, so the y goes on top. And then finally, the coefficients of each of the logs becomes the power of the corresponding thing. Right, so this x, the coefficient is 2, so it becomes x squared. The 2x cubed doesn't have a coefficient, so we don't need to write anything extra here. And finally the y, the log of y has coefficient 4, so when we combine it, it becomes y to the 4th. Okay, so finally, we combine everything here, and then we see that we have an x squared and x cubed. X squared on top, x cubed on the bottom, so we can cancel that. Okay, so it becomes log y to the 4th over 2x. Okay, so now let's see what happens when we expand into separate logs. Right, so first, again, all the logs should stay the same, so this is the natural log. When it separates, you have all the natural log. There are 2 things on top and 2 things on the bottom. So in total, there should be 4 terms, 4 natural logs. And so factors on top become terms that are added. So I have the x on top, y on top. So these 2 terms are positive. And then I have w and z on the bottom. So the log for w needs to be subtracted, and the log for z also needs to be subtracted. Okay, so one thing you want to be careful is that even though there's a multiplication here, because the z is on the bottom, the rule is that when it's on the bottom, essentially it's being divided. Right, so the z needs to be subtracted. And then finally, when separating, powers become coefficients. Right, so the y squared becomes 2 natural log of y. The w cubed becomes minus 3 natural log of w, and the z to the 4th on the bottom becomes minus 4 natural log of z. Okay, so that's what basically how we combine all the rules together. So let's look at some examples. So here we're combining. So first thing, we make sure the base matches up, which it does. So it's log base 5. So we combine it into a single log. And then we look at the operations. Operation here is addition. So when combining, addition changes to multiplication. And we look at what's inside the logs. So x and x plus 1. So these gets multiplied. So x times x plus 1. And then finally, we look at the coefficients, and the coefficients become powers. So x, the log for x has a coefficient of 2. So x should have a power of 2. And then the x plus 1 has a coefficient of 7. So this should be to the 7th power. Okay, so it combines to log base 5 of x squared times x plus 1 to the 7th power. Okay, in the second part, now we separate this log. So first thing is that so it's natural log. There's 3 things inside, right? So x, y, and z. So I need, so x and y are being multiplied on top, so those terms are positive. So I have natural log of x plus natural log of y. So I leave some space for the coefficients. And then the z is on the bottom, so that term needs to be subtracted. So this is on the bottom. These two are on top. And then finally, the powers become the coefficients, right? So the x has a power 3, so the natural log of x has coefficient 3. The y has 6 power, so natural log of y gets coefficient 6. And finally, z has a coefficient of 5 here. Okay, so this expands to 3 natural log of x plus 6 natural log of y minus 5 natural log of z.